Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to our 13th session of our 2020 virtual training series for CCDEH. For those of you who don't know me, my name is April Meneghetti, and I'm the Director of Environmental Health in Yolo County, and I am the CCDEH past president. I wanted to give a huge thank you to Acela, who's been doing our training series support, and they've been awesome. Thank you. Also, I want to thank Hedgerow for sponsoring 3 rural county scholarships, and also KHA, who sponsored 20 retired director scholarships. I hope that you all will be able to join us for our last session, which will be next week on November 5th. And now I'd like to introduce Jeff Lamore, who's our CCDEH president. Take it away, Jeff.
Thank you, April. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to CCDEH's virtual training series. The live training series is open to all CCDEH members, including associate members. In order to receive your CEUs for each training session, you'll need to complete the course evaluation located towards the middle of the virtual training series webpage. Tim's going to pull that up here in a second. Click on the REHS course evaluation tab.
Sorry.
That's all right. Click next and complete the requested information. Real quick with that, it's real important that you, when completing your evaluation, please make sure to complete all steps. There is a final step that needs to be completed in order to accept the completed evaluation. So make sure you go through the entire steps of completing the evaluation so that your evaluation will be submitted. So make sure that you're completing that. For CCDEH members, one certificate will be issued at the conclusion of the training series. Only those sessions you have attended and have completed a course evaluation for will be listed on your certificate. For all other REHSs, you can log on to CCDEH's website and access the training series. Once you have completed the training series, return to the virtual training series webpage and complete the course evaluation and obtain your CEU certificate. Just as a reminder, you can access the CCDEH 2020 member directory. It's under the evaluations tab. Also, the video series are located under the events tab. Training videos will be posted within a week or so. Within a week after the live session, again, non-registered members can go to the events tab to access the videos in the video library. Just as a reminder, as April indicated, the last session is on November 5th. So you want to make sure if you haven't completed your evaluations, please do complete all your evaluations on or before the 5th. The certificates will be posted in your account by November 6th. With that, I would like to introduce Clark Pickle, Director of Yuba County Environmental Health. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Clark.
Thanks, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. I would again like to welcome everyone to the 13th session of the CCDEH virtual conference, which seems kind of appropriate for Halloween since we have the 13th in there. My name is Clark Pickle. I'm the Director for Yuba County Environmental Health and the Chair for CCDEH Region 1. I'm standing in today for Marie Wood, and she's the CCDEH Hazmat Chair. She couldn't attend the session today, so she kindly volunteered myself to do the introduction today. Again, the session being presented today is Emergency Considerations with Drinking Dihydrogen Monoxide. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Joseph Crisologo is a professional engineer with the State Water Resources Control Board, the Division of Drinking Water. Joseph has a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering, and obviously is a professional engineer, and has a Master's in Business Administration. In the past, Joseph remediated hazardous waste sites, operated a hazardous materials operations program, and regulated public water systems. Joseph has now over 32 years of service in the state of California, and I want to congratulate him for that. That's an amazing accomplishment. And is currently serving in the role of Emergency Coordinator and Senior Homeland Security Engineer for the Division of Drinking Water. In this role, Joseph promotes water security, emergency preparedness and response, and organizational resilience. With that, I would like to turn it over to Joseph to discuss the concerns of dihydrogen monoxide and other contaminants in drinking water. Thanks, Joseph.
You guys hear me okay?
Loud and clear, sir.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Clark, and good morning, folks. Yeah, my name is Joseph Crisologo, and thanks for the great introduction. Yeah, and excuse the sensationalism, obviously, with respect to drinking dihydrogen monoxide. It's just another way to say water, you know, and kind of like points to the idea that you can certainly phrase things differently depending on how you want it to look like. I certainly do appreciate and thanks this organization, CCDEH, for asking me to come over and talk about drinking water. And I do appreciate your time in spending a little bit of an hour with me here, and certainly do acknowledge and say thanks and about your effort to try and increase your capabilities in this area of protecting public health, if you will. So let's get on with this. Let's start off with the mission, right? Our mission is protect public health, and by making sure that the provision of water is safe, clean, and wholesome, as well as potable water, and that it's done reliably and adequately. That kind of like frames everything that we do, right, in the organization. If you look at the little caricature there, you have a couple, three, I guess, individuals. They're trying to land a dart in the target. Right? You have one holding the tail, one holding the middle of that dart, and one leading the point, right? All of them are doing individual things that they know of and that they may be more proficient at, but they all know that they're all working together to try and bring that dot right into the arrow, into that target, bring the dart into the target. So in a sense, we all are doing different things that we do, but we have to keep in mind, it's useful to keep in mind that whatever we do, we go into that same direction. And that's really the point of this. And the reason why we need that mission, we need to remember that mission in whatever we do, okay? What we're gonna go through today in this less than an hour, we're gonna get an understanding of the criticality of drinking water to public health in an emergency setting. And you guys already know about this through all the emergencies that we've been through. We're going to get a little bit of awareness of any concerns, threats, and vulnerabilities to the public water system, because we're Division Drinking Water. We regulate public water systems throughout the state. And that's my area of responsibility, if you will. We're going to look at some of the approaches to address some of these concerns. And certainly I'm not going to cover all the concerns, but we'll see some of those. And understand a network of partners to whom we coordinate, right? You'll find that networks and networks of networks bring you strength as far as resiliency is concerned. And we'll find out that, well, we need that, basically. This is who we are. We're throughout the state, as far north as Redding, as far south as San Diego. We're distributed throughout. We share this role of protecting public health by making sure that that drinking water is safe with our local primacy agencies, and some of which you folks are, and I do appreciate you guys joining in this endeavor that we have before us to make sure that the public stays safe, basically, right? Considerations, all right? These are really, really important, okay? These are important concepts to try and understand. Again, I've been here with the state, serving the state of California for 32 years. And with that length of time that I've been, you see things, you understand things. You tend to see things through the cloud of smoke, such as the first one. All emergencies are local, all responses are local, right? We'll touch a little bit on that. I won't dig right into it, but all that really means is the decisions and everything that happens in an emergency and an incident happens down there where the locals are, okay? Everything outside supports that. That's how that standardized emergency management system works, right? And the incident command system is really more of an organized approach to try and help get that management system going as far as managing an incident. But that standardized emergency management system is really key to what we do in the state. and how we work together between the locals, cities, division operations center, counties, state, and feds, right? And important also understand, okay, get this through. The EOC is the focal point. It's the brain. It's of the response activity. Their job is to act like the center, right? They get information from the field, from the different incidences. They work on trying to parse out resources amongst the different incidences going on. You see this very well with fire, right? Especially during the recent fires that we've been having. They do a very good job as far as trying to figure out where to send resources where they need to be. We need to get this down pat as far as how we work together, okay? Because if we don't, then we become more of we can slow the system down and pose a challenge, if we will. And folks, also understand this, and I encourage you guys to do this, okay? There's a position called a water sector specific position. The specialized training, California Specialized Training Institute, CSTI, they have courses on these positions in the EOC, right? So I encourage you guys to look into that. This is basically just a water expert sitting at your EOC, and their job is to help you at the EOC make sense about what's going on in water, because they know water. And they in turn will have some training as far as how to work in the EOC, right? So have that in mind. We've been trying to push this out with our partners, counties. We've been pushing that out. Cal OES has been pushing it out too. And understand there are interdependencies that exist among critical infrastructures, right? I know I'm water, but I realize that my water systems require or need electricity. But electricity in some cases requires water to maintain cooling, for example, right? There are interdependencies we must be aware of. We cannot just maintain a tunnel vision with respect to what we do. We need to open up our vision and understand where all those interdependencies are, right? Because we need all those connections to be maintained in order to maintain that community, to keep it running, move it forward. Awareness is really important. Familiarization, coordination, collaboration, awareness, it all starts with awareness, being aware, understanding what's going on around you. And also, I encourage folks, and I've been trying to push this also with our organization, there are agency reps. Their role in the EOC is to represent the agency that has jurisdictional authority over whatever is going on and whatever is happening with respect to that incident, right? And communication has always been a challenge. We need to get that communication going through, right? A lot of boons that we have now with respect to technology that we have, the virtual reality, the ability to go through Zoom or Microsoft Teams, that's pretty cool. But yeah, I even see myself that we are a creature of social interactions. And so we miss that. We miss that good discussion, seeing facial expressions, seeing body language, working together, shaking hands, right? We miss that. And eventually, I believe that we will get back into that because we are social beings, okay? So some considerations. In other words, these are bigger things that you want to keep in mind. And I have a few more at the end to try and impart upon you, okay? So real quick, SEMS, right? The whole principle of SEMS is that the emergency happens at the local area, like we're looking at the field, the local government, the operational area, right? Emergencies require resources. Resource could be information, intelligence. It could be manpower. It could be equipment, materials. What happens if at the local area you don't have that material, that resource? What happens then? It's real simple. What you do is you raise it up to the next level, like in this case, the state's level, which is the region. Their job is to see if they can find that resource, satisfy the need at the local area. At the region, they can broker amongst many other counties. Do you have this emergency generator? Do you have this backhoe, right? Do you have this truck, this front end loader, right? And if not, and nobody in that region has it, they reach out to other regions, right? And there are different regions in the state, and we'll see the big division of that in the next few slides. And if that region doesn't have, right, you have the state operations center. That's the next level up. And if the state doesn't have that resource, be it funding and so forth, they reach out to the feds. So that's how that thing works, right? But it all comes back down to that local government, that operational area, this whole area here and the field, okay? Everything else supports them. And they need to understand that and realize that so that they're able to receive and call and understand how to make that request, okay? It's very important, okay? The principles are used out in the field and the same as at the EOC, right? But they're different things. Out in the field, they're looking more into tactical actions, how to put out the fire, how to get water to where it's needed, right? But the EOC, their objective is to how do I support that activity down on the ground? You know, do you need more water? Where can we get more potable water, hauled water, bottled water? Okay, what else do you need out in the field? That's their job. Okay. Again, SEMS, 4 major components. You have here, you know, they have operate in the operational area concept, mutual assistance, mutual aid, you know, EOCs, UMAC, and all that. Okay. Very good. Now, incident command system, very old system. If I read right, it kind of like originated from the military side of things, right? And for obvious reasons. Many resources, many men, objective is to get something done. How do you control all of this to get that done? A lot of it's just an organizational concept, structure. Real key thing here is a division of labor. So you don't have to look at everything, but you can focus on one thing. You know, and different folks, assignment of task, accountability. And if you look at the different EOCs from locals to other locals to state, to, we're all looking at the same structure. It's uniform, right? That's what's really important, okay? Taking care of operations, planning, intelligence, logistics, finance and administration, and then management. So things get done, right, and can be done. Here's a quick look. That EOC concept I mentioned, right? So the EOC is the brain. It's the AWACS, right? It's the eye in the sky, if you will. They have the view of what's going on in the different incidents around the area, the battleground, if you will, right? And they make decisions about where resource would go, okay? And they would balance, they would weigh, right? And they would identify what's needed, right? So it's real important. That EOC is key, right? If you want to know what's going on in an incident, it's at the EOC. And the EOC must be ready to be able to receive incoming as far as representatives, folks trying to help, folks who have jurisdiction in that area, right? You need to have a liaison officer whose job is to shake hands for people coming in, point them to the right direction of where they need to be to try and get the job done. So that's really, really important. The EOC is really, really focal, right? So the folks at CCDEH asked me to come in. I asked them, hey, you know, what kind of issues do you guys want to talk about? And there were 3, obviously 3 that we've been dealing with right now. And that was the pandemic, the public safety power shut off, and the wildfires. So here I'm presenting some information on pandemic. We've got a lot of stuff up there on our web page, and there's our web page address. I'm not going to click on it, and you guys certainly can look at it later. I didn't want to mess up this presentation, or there probably might not be time, but a lot of good information. Go to that. We've got on our webpage. We've been saying, folks, you know, go to this. You guys know already. We've been into this for 7 months for the pandemic. Wear facial coverings, protect others. All right, because there's this. You know, you don't know if you have that COVID-19, and you know, you might be spreading it. And so keep the facial coverings, maintain social distance, wash your hands, use disinfectants. Okay. Again, that awareness, familiarization, coordination, collaboration is really key. Your ability to be able to work with in this area of emergency response and preparedness. we are essential workers. Water utilities are essential workers, and that's been identified, 7 months ago with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, part of the Department of Homeland Security. And we have that language up on our webpage. And we pushed that out to our water utilities and partners many months ago. Okay, so there's an understanding on that. Okay. On our webpage here, there was a concern about, how we have reduced the use and occupancy of offices, schools, and buildings. And there's a question, okay, well, how's the water quality going to be once we start reoccupying those places? Well, we have some guidance there already on how to do or deal with reactivating services and operations. Much of it really has to do with respect to making sure you adequately flush the building systems to get rid of the water that that became stagnant in that building, right? We have directions or guidance for public water systems, communities, as well as schools and buildings, right? And also I want to push out that EPA, they've got a lot of resource, and they did a lot of work also in this thing called the Incident Action Plan. Incident Action Checklist. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. And they have produced one here for the pandemic, right? So IAC, Incident Action Checklist. And we're looking at trying to figure out how this pandemic is affecting water systems financially. If you remember, there was a executive order that was issued by the governor as far as water utilities not doing a moratorium as far as shutting down service to customers, because it's a public health issue, right? But we wanted to get an understanding on how the pandemic is affecting their finances, right? Because, how much of an impact. So we're going to be going out and asking some questions of some water utilities in a matter of, I think, a few weeks. We're working on some questions and trying to figure out who to ask and that kind of thing. I know we tried to do that by a survey, but it didn't really give us the information that we needed, okay? So here's a quick look at that. I know you can't read this. My purpose here is just to show you what the document looks like on the front page. That's the incident action checklist for the pandemic incidents. Again, rip and run, right? It's a checklist. If you open up the second page on that, you'll see little boxes where you check, and it gives you an idea of, suggestions on what you probably want to try and address during the prepare, response, and recover, right? We have a link on our webpage. You can get to that. I'll also send this over to the organization so you guys can share it. But great stuff. It's just a lot of things to consider as far as dealing with the pandemic, right? All right. And then the next issue or challenge that we have is this public safety power shutoff, right? And we've just recently come out of that last one, which is a huge one. As far north as Northern California, and down south towards San Diego, there were a few places that power was shut off. Again, we have a link on our webpage that shows all this material, okay? And again, awareness, familiarization, coordination, collaboration is very key. Now, recently, maybe a few months ago, we worked with EPA, Cal Warren, other water agencies and wastewater agencies. We had a workshop down here in December. I think it was, August actually, out in Glendora, Southern California, and two up in Santa Rosa, I think, and then the other one was in Vacaville, right? To work on and develop a standard operational procedure. That's that acronym there, SOP, Standard Operational Procedure for a Public Safety Power Shutoff, right? So we developed that. That's on our webpage. That's on the EPA's webpage. We sent out a mass mail, excuse me, to water utilities and partners on this a few months ago. Well, actually, a few weeks ago. And EPA also produced an incident action checklist for power outage, right? So the SOP goes in a lot more detail from blue sky meaning everything is normal, towards the recovery side. So a lot more detail, a lot more items to consider for your water utilities to be more resilient and to recover from a major power outage. And it kind of like started also with the idea of, you guys ever heard of black sky? That's a coinage, a terminology that describes what happened in the many years ago in the Northeast, when they had a major misbalance on the power supply, and it shut down power for quite a while in the Northeast. Well, a lot of agencies are looking at that. If you ever heard of the Electrical Industry Security Council, EIS Council, they put forth that EarthX exercise. If you guys probably saw some of that, where in which they try to exercise or encourage exercising that major power outage for a long time. First, as an error being an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse that shuts down everything, and then a cyber attack, and then finally a global supply chain scenario. So great stuff. There's that incident action checklist, and then they have a power resilience guidance. So a lot of stuff that they have there. Okay. Here you have that first page of that incident action checklist for power outages. Okay, again, great stuff. I encourage you guys to have a look at that. A lot of resources put in this on the federal government, try and get it out there to water utilities and partners, certainly to try and be more resilient in the case of a power outage. Okay, and we may be in for quite a lot more depending on how things are on the weather side, at least in California. Okay. Quick look about that public safety power shutoff standard operational procedure template. Again, it's a template, so your water utilities can go through it. I know you can't read this. My purpose here is just to show you what that there is such a page. You have on the first page of it, or actually second page, a reference matrix, quick reference matrix. Okay, so from blue sky all the way down to recovery. Okay. And then the third major item that we're dealing with here is wildfires. Okay, now public safety power shutoff are very, very closely tied with wildfires, obvious reasons, right? Our power utilities wanted to shut off pre-fire their areas of high risks as far as their lines, so that they don't become the cause of fires because of the high winds and so forth. And obviously you've seen in some news that our authorities are looking into some of these fires as, whether or not they've been caused by power utilities. So there is a reason why, but wildfires is that. We got the web page there, the link. I encourage you guys to have a look at our web page. We've got a lot of the information there. Again, awareness, familiarization, coordination, collaboration is very important. And EPA did develop an incident action checklist for wildfires, right? Close relation with public safety power shutoff, okay? We were concerned about this since, I think, 2018. And we released this, again, you can't read it, but it's going to be sent over to your organization. You can see it. And it's on our web page too. Right? But what I did here, and I forget where I drew the example on this, but I just put in here different items, different factors that a water utility can just consider to try and increase their resilience, right? There's stuff from the power utility, Cal Warren is there, doing a understanding how to do an incident action plan, right? Circle P. Get your notifications together. So that's available on our webpage. Okay. We've been pushing this out to water utilities and our partners. So that's there. Just have a look at that if you can. And I'll probably be drilling into some of these things in the next few slides. And we also put together some considerations, right? Options for consideration for a water utility with respect to their customers. Okay, what can your customers do to be more resilient as far as public safety power shutoff and fire? So we have that. Okay. And here's that incident action checklist from the US EPA as far as wildfires. Okay, again, rip and run. Go ahead, print it. Get your water utilities to check mark on it. And actually, some of the stuff we ourselves can do well to consider in what we do. Right. EPFAT, okay, that's the Emergency Power Facility Assessment Tool. So public facilities, when push comes to shove and they need emergency generators, right? And it gets up to the federal level, FEMA would get in touch with the Army Corps of Engineers and say, hey, they need emergency generators. It takes a while for the Army Corps of Engineers to get somebody out there to assess, okay, but what kind of generators do you need? What kind of connections do you have? What kind of load do you need? And do we have the generators? Well, EPFAT is an online tool in which the water utility and a public entity can upload their emergency generator capacity needs, you know, identify what they need, what kind of connections, and so forth. That way, it's available for those who might need it and those that are responding, right? And so it's secure web page, website information is secure. So yeah, you have it there. And so there'd be less amount of time being needed to do an assessment. What kind of generator is needed at the facility, right? Remember that it's EPFAT. Again, I'll have that information provided. Okay. So yeah, California been big challenge as far as wildfire is concerned. This one here is from the fire map. It's called Y-Fire. Okay, if you guys are not familiar, it's called Y-Fire. Found this through links with my other partners. And this just shows you the 2008 to 2020 wildfires that happened here in California, and also shows what happened up there in neighboring state, Nevada. There's a web link. This wildfire map, I look at some of the information there, and it's run out of the San Diego supercomputer. So yeah, by the name itself, you can understand that it's got it's going through a lot of computing power to try and arrive at this. And it looks like they work closely with fire service, and their objective is to try and see if they can anticipate a wildfire behavior so that resources can be sent to where it's needed much sooner than later and be able to put the fire out faster, right? So very cool. I encourage you guys to have a look at it. I thought it was pretty cool. You can turn on different layers. You can turn on the weather forecast. You can see where the smoke goes. Great stuff. Okay? And that's one of the tools that I've been using to keep track of what's going on the wildfires out in California. Okay. Now, a couple of interesting thing that developed over in the Tubbs fire out in Santa Rosa, as well as the Camp Fire over in Butte County in Paradise, is that we found in the distribution system of the water facilities that contaminants from the outside were appearing inside these lines, as well as VOCs, volatile organic compounds, like benzene, for example. And you might have seen it in the news, okay? And, you know, a lot of us were scratching our heads, where is that coming from? We don't know any major sources of benzene around. There's a, residential community. But we found out later, and still it's being studied, that it might come from, let's say, plastics and synthetics. Water has been drained of it because you got no water going through, and increased temperatures might have released the benzene in the pipes. And that's what we've been seeing. So what we have here, and that's available on our webpage, if it isn't, it will be soon. Guidance on what to consider doing when you run into the situation with your water utilities. Okay, contaminants entering or being created within the distribution system. It recommends unidirectional flushing as soon as possible, multiple cycles of it to keep washing it out. Okay. Obviously, there's some limitations there, right? If the fire is still alive and it's not safe to go into the fire area, then obviously you can't do that. And we encountered that kind of discussion with St. Helena recently, a couple of weeks ago. Okay, you need to wait for its clearance from the fire service to say you can go in. But unidirectional flushing, multiple cycles, you get the idea of flushing it. Okay. Yeah, plastics and synthetics is what we're looking at as possible sources, and there's specialized testing, right? Involving, flush it, let the water sit, test it, see if it's still there. Okay, so again, I'll have that material over to your organization, and they'll find ways to make it available. But this will be on our webpage too soon. Okay, we also came up with unsafe water alerts. Now, you folks with water, right, and you folks with not with water, we have something called the unsafe water alert. It's the last line of defense that we have to protect public health. The last line, right? And that last line, we say, hey, folks, we this is a boil water notice. Okay, your water is not safe microbiologically. You need to boil your water, rolling boil for 1 minute. Okay, or there's nitrates, for example, that got into your water. It's not a boil. It's more a do not drink. Okay, because you don't want to get high nitrates into your system, especially for young kids, babies, and so forth, because of the methemoglobinemia issue, blue baby syndrome, that we don't want to happen. Okay, but you can still wash dishes with it, bathe with the water, and so forth, flush your toilets and so forth. Okay, and then there's the do not use. Okay, so those are the three major water utility unsafe water notices that we have to protect public health. And again, that's the last line of defense, because when you do that, then the public is aware. Then they won't, they'll be careful about touching that water. Okay. And of course, there's that fourth one, which is more of a cancellation of these notices once everything's been fixed. But one thing that we observed, again, with respect to the volatile organic compounds that we've been seeing in these last few fires, again, Camp Fire and the one in Tubbs Fire in Santa Rosa, is that it's not just a do not drink, but a do not boil. Because obviously, if you have VOCs in the water and you're taking a shower, then you're also breathing in and inhaling that VOC. So that's the reason why we do have the do not boil. And it's pretty much go and search or find or refer to alternate sources of water, being bottled water and cold water. Okay, and we have limit use, limit exposure, find alternate source of water, and make notification and make sure everybody's aware. Okay, so we have a template here we put together. This one here is just for precautionary. Precautionary because we don't have the data yet, but we suspect based upon the behavior of the fire and the condition of the water utility. So that's what we have there. Water utilities just need to fill out the yellow highlighted areas with the specific name, information, and so forth of the incident, and they can use it. Now, again, it's a template, right? It's a template. So templates are just guidance. Water utilities can do that. They can work the language to be more specific to the incident. Of course, they do need to coordinate, obviously, with the district engineer for our state systems, and obviously with the local primacy agency, you folks. If you at the LPAs haven't seen this yet, I imagine you'll be seeing it pretty soon through our liaison office, okay, that you work with. Okay. Now, and we also have a template for the actual, where in which you have the data that shows that you got, this and this VOCs or what have you, contaminants detected. Okay, and the water utility distribution system has been depressurized. So it's a do not drink, do not boil. That's the new one. Okay, so we have that. That's available. Okay, other considerations. Okay. An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. You've seen this and heard this many times, and it becomes really, really important here, right? We need to put a lot of effort in the front end of an emergency. In the parlance of the bomb text, right? Areas before boom, really, right? That prevent, that prepare, deter, detect, delay, and deter, detect, delay is really on the security side of the picture. But if we put a lot more effort in that area, we become more resilient, right? Local hazard mitigation plan, very important, okay? This is really a county thing too, but it's important to understand where that plays into this whole picture. FEMA funding for hazard mitigation is dependent upon that plan being finalized and approved. And your project, and I'm referring to water utilities or what other critical infrastructure needs to try and mitigate any potential hazards, okay, needs to be in that plan in order to be available to avail of federal funding from FEMA, right? These plans are on reviews periodically. So it's best to try and get your projects in, or get your water systems projects in, or critical infrastructure projects in there during the review period. Okay, FEMA and the federal government put this new funding source. It's called Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities, the BRIC program. Okay, that's new, and I think it's replacing one of the hazard mitigation funding. Okay. So important. You guys read into that. It's, you know, just need to search the internet. A lot of the information is available there, and they've done quite a lot of online training on that already. Okay, but it's important. We've got water, we've got electricity, and water is very vulnerable. We need to get our water projects in there. Okay, that's important. Engage the water systems. Gain proficiency and capacity with the training and resources. Coordinate with FEMA and Cal OES. I mean, they've got a lot of training online. Right. One of the challenges I've seen with respect to my partners that I work with, both at the county and even with the state, is that people go, you know, people retire, people move jobs, and then you start out with a new group, a new person, and they start out from scratch, if you will, trying to learn more things, trying to develop the relationships. Okay. Well, if we can try and jumpstart that by understanding that, you know, we do need to try and get together with these sources of training, of learning, then I think we do a lot better. Okay. Avoid the tunnel vision. Maintain that 360-degree point of view. Interdependencies and awareness of what's going on around you. Okay, it's very, very important. I've seen this. In fact, I've experienced it too. I mean, as I was developing myself throughout my 32 years of experience, and I actually started out with cleaning hazardous waste sites, you know, and that was my tunnel vision, right? But as I grew along, I realized interdependencies and interrelationships that exist around, and that need to be there in order to make sure that we respond effectively, right? Remember that there is a safety officer at the EOC. Their job is to make sure that everybody involved in the incident is safe. So you need to make sure we check with them, check their safety protocols, make sure we agree with it and we follow it. And here's another thing that's kind of like important, okay? I mentioned earlier the pandemic. I mentioned public safety power shutoff. I mentioned wildfires, okay? But remember, there is no cookbook on this, right? Cookbook, Betty Crocker. Do this, and you get this great chocolate cake. Well, it doesn't work this way in our real world, okay? We need to be able to be prepared for anything, right? And anything is happening because we've got this climate challenges that are going on. The pandemic is happening. Things happen, and we need to be prepared for anything. That's why we rely on these policies and processes that we go through. It becomes really important how we do things, why we do things. And then if we find out it doesn't work, then that means we got to go in and rebuild what we're doing, the policies, the procedures, okay? And that's how we can maintain that flexibility, because every incident can be variable. I mean, there's a lot of variables involved in these incidents, could make it go one way or the other, and it's all individual, okay? Just want to try and plant that in your mind. Think about these things. Many of our strengths is in how we think, what we see, what we do, okay, individually as well as together. Other considerations, okay, these are very important. And that's the reason why I put a lot of this in. I'm bringing it up, okay. Be part of the solution rather than a victim, nor the problem. For the earthquake folks, right, they keep saying, you know, you're in bed, you're in your bedroom, keep a pair of soft shoes underneath, a pair of folded soft, maybe sweatpants, sweatshirts and stuff underneath, or easily reachable, because when the earthquake happens, you could probably have a lot of glass broken on the floor, Let's say you wake up, you start walking around, you cut your feet, and now you're not really helpful. You're a victim now. You really can't help. So you got to keep thinking that way. Contacts and notifications is important. One tool we have as far as water use is a conservation message. And we've seen that a lot during the drought. That's another tool that we use, our water utilities can use. Technology, we use it to our max advantage. We're seeing a lot of things going on in this direction. GIS has been very, very helpful. Communications, eyes on. You've heard about drones. I think drones are going to be even more used because we need eyes on the incident, just like the AWACS, for example, and real-time information. Okay, I've been working with hazmat folks down here in the LA area, and they've been working with technology, where in which they have robots going in with real-time sensors, sending them in the field information of what's going downwind or downrange, okay, to keep, again, everybody safe, right? Very important, okay, for water, okay, coordinate with the district engineer and the local primacy agency. That hits again on that communication, okay, communication, okay. On the source water during these fires, Regional Water Quality Control Board is going to be very well involved because they cover the waters of the state. You've got the BEAR report and the work report. These are BEAR is from the U.S. Forest Service, works from CAL FIRE. These are pretty much just an assessment of the watershed, okay, and a report of the conditions of the watershed, and to make recommendations on how to fortify the watershed when the rains come. And water systems part of that because that's their source water. Water quality is an issue. And they'll look at best available technology, or BAT, which involves wattles and hydroseeding. And I've seen some of these out in the Santa Rosa area, okay? Certainly we have concerns about debris flows and debris removal, okay? Access becomes important. So water utilities, there are times trying to get through roadblocks to try and fix, let's say, a generator or make sure that the water tank's going to get supplied. We need to make sure we clear this with respect to the EOC. There's that EOC again, and law enforcement. And that communication needs to get through so that whoever is doing that roadblock needs to understand that, well, these are essential personnel, they have to be waved through. But these are things that you take care of, shaking hands before the incident. So it becomes really important in that sense, okay? Coordination, collaboration, awareness, ask questions, very important. In the next few weeks, it might be months, we're working on trying to get that service area boundary layer together. And the objective here is to provide information on where water utilities boundaries are, and you can overlay them with respect to where the incidents are, like the fires or public safety power shutoff. And you can understand whether or not that water utility is going to be affected and how affected, right? Data and availability, I'm seeing that. Data science is getting into the picture. We're looking at trying to get more information on the effects of water utilities, water quality from incidents. Like I mentioned, we're trying to get an understanding of how that pandemic is affecting your water utilities as far as the financial side of the picture is concerned. What we're also seeing is we have the need to think and anticipate the behavior of an incident. I mentioned wildfire earlier. That's what they're doing. They're trying to figure out what's the behavior. And that's odd because it's an inanimate item, right? Wildfires, but behavior of a wildfire, which is pretty much highly dependent upon the weather that's going on, the wind speeds, the dryness of the vegetation, and so forth. And folks, you remember that at our course, right? I think a lot of you took that course. It's the Environmental Health Training on Emergency Response. I think it's a great one because it goes into a lot of multimedia learning on what you do for environmental health in an emergency setting, right? It's pushed by CCDEH. I was supposed to be talking on a few of these on the water topic, but yeah, that kind of got postponed because of the pandemic. And I look forward to CCDEH, California Department of Public Health, putting it up again and going on. These are usually like a 2-day thing, but they have another course which is really more hands-on. You might have seen that. I encourage you guys to take this because you get a good picture about what's going on around, not just what you're doing, if your food, if your sanitation, so forth, but what everybody else is doing. Okay, so you get a better understanding and perspective, right? So let's get at this. Educational objectives. Did we accomplish these? Well, we understood criticality of drinking water, at least some of it. I couldn't get into a lot more in an emergency setting. Awareness of concerns, threats, and vulnerabilities. You saw some of that. I talked about the VOC issue and wildfires and drinking water pipes going empty because of the fires, especially if they're like PVC, synthetics, and so forth, are concerns. How approaches or what approaches we have to try and address these concerns. I mentioned about the special sampling, communication, and then understanding the network of partners with whom to coordinate. You establish this partnership. You got to reach out, okay? And one of the best ways to reach out is doing exercises, tabletop exercises, right? And so we go back to that mission, okay? The missions is always on my mind, right? Throughout these years. Protection of public health by ensuring the provision of safe, clean, wholesome, potable water reliably and adequately. And certainly I'm open to any questions that might come in. I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Joe. That was awesome. You know, I was thinking with this power shutoff time, public safety power shutoff, and how that's really changed our world in the last several years, as well as the wildfire response. And, you know, when you were talking about just source water issues for water systems in the context of wildfires, and I think of retardant being dropped and all sorts of things that we weren't even dealing with before. I'm just wondering if you have any ideas on how we might be prepared for the challenges that we're facing in the next few years that are in this new world.
You know, that's a very good question, and thanks for that. I also wanted to point out that a lot of folks are thinking about that in different areas. If you look down here in Southern California, there's efforts to try and increase resilience of the water picture by increasing or studying at least the idea of advanced treatment of our recycled water and then sending it up to the head of the headworks and doing a recharge. And that's here in Southern California on this side of the main fault, the San Andreas fault. So they're looking at increased resiliency in that sense. And I point out to drought. I pointed out to earthquakes. I pointed out to water resiliency. And that kind of points out to this, your question is pretty much, I mentioned earlier, there is no cookbook, right? In the world we live in, there's a lot of variability that comes in. New things come into play. I mean, we never saw this whole issue about VOCs in the drinking water system when I was earlier dealing with as a district engineer. And I was dealing with, let's say, down in another small city here, I had a fire force, a fire team, put out the fire, but they didn't take the pressure off their truck. And when they turned the valve on the hydrant, it flushed all that firefighting foam into the distribution system, right? So we had a do not drink notice out there and flush, right? Wow. No other issue. I mean, firefighters live with that foam, right? But now we've got this whole thing about VOCs and PVC and all that. So new things come up, right? There is no cookbook. We must rely on our processes and policies. We must exercise. We must get that communication through. And that's how we can become more resilient and more flexible and adaptable for whatever comes our way, right?
Right.
There are a lot of challenges now, and there are going to be a lot more challenges in the future. That's what I would say. Just be adaptable. Think, anticipate, get those policies and procedures down, and we'll all do a lot better in the future. And this pandemic, it will pass eventually. We're getting in that direction, and we'll be better for it. Hopefully, we'll be better for it, and we'll learn and be better.
Great. Thank you for that. How about, do you have any way that we can share best practices around California so that we can learn from the experiences of others and not have to invent the wheel?
That's a good good question, and I've seen this. I was like working with the Southern Region Emergency Operations Center with Cal OES before, and the regional administrator was a great guy. I mean, he learned about water. He was attuned to it, but he left and moved into another agency, and you start all over again. I don't know. I think what we got to do is collectively just do tabletop exercises. I think we do learn a lot that way. We get to see our partners, shake hands, and when you do the tabletop exercises and you have the problem on the table, you get to see where the gaps are. And if you find a gap, okay, we need someone to deal with this. Let's invite them in. And it doesn't have to be complicated or big. I mean, you could just have it 1 hour, get some donuts, put it in the middle of the table. Food usually brings people in.
Right.
That kind of thing. It's pretty much just learning,
Okay.
and being adaptable.
I think your point that none of these situations are the same, and so we have to be creative thinkers. We have to, there's no cookie cutter approach. Every situation is different, and so you've got to be adaptable.
Yeah, there's just no cookbook, and we may say, hey, we've gone through this pandemic, okay, we've gone through this public safety power shutoff, okay, so we know how to deal with that now. Good. Well, the next one comes with a different monkey wrench. It just throws everything out to tizzy, and it's not matching our process and procedures that we use. How are we going to deal with this now? Well, you want to be prepared for that, so you want to be able to be flexible and think on the fly.
I think the PSPS has brought up kind of this whole new world of, being without power for 2 days. I don't think, people envision that when you put in a backup generator or something like that for these long power outages.
And folks are learning also, because when we first started with this PSPS, and it was last year, they learned that, the generator's not working, because the fuel's old. We didn't put any conditioner on it. We gotta change it. So, so you learn things. But I think if we took this seriously and looked around and did the 360-degree view of what else might happen, I think we learn a lot more and we can become more resilient. And that's that big word, resilient. It's a cover-all word. EPA's pushed it. I pushed it. It just means being able to bounce back to normal faster. You guys know Dr. Lucy Jones, right? She's our
Yes.
earthquake expert down
Yes.
south. She made a difference explanation as far as what's the difference between a calamity and a disaster, right? And we saw what happened in Hurricane Katrina down in Louisiana. It became disastrous. They never were able to recover to where they were before. A lot of people just moved out and moved to Texas and even California, right? What we want to try and do is prevent that disaster becoming a calamity. Very good question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Great presentation. Justin, do you have any final thoughts or final questions?
Actually, no, there's a lot to chew on here, Joe. Thank you so much. And, our environmental health directors, whether they're LPAs or not, are starting to focus more and more on this issue, because as the state moves down into the smaller systems, the ones that they traditionally haven't provided oversight over, it becomes more critical for us at the local level to be able to work with you and others at the state water board and even the water resources and the other state agencies to help us, because the locals aren't going to be able to do it alone. There's a huge, huge mandate to keep our water safe. And thank you for participating and helping us. And the water board has generally been very, very supportive of the locals, and we hope we can keep this relationship together going.
Thank you. Motto, that mission I have there. And remember, like the motto for the U.S. Coast Guard, Semper Paratus, always be prepared. I mean, it's good to have that mission in mind. Again, questions certainly later on, if anybody has it, there's my email. And you know how things are nowadays. It's all technology. I have my office phone, but I'm not very well often in that office. And you leave a message, I'll take the message and move on. But email is probably best.
Thanks,
Again,
Joe.
I thank you for the opportunity, guys, and I do appreciate it. And hopefully you guys learned quite a bit.
Thank you, Joe. I have that image of the dart at the very beginning with the state and the locals partnering together to hit the bullseye. So with our operators. So that's a great image for us. So thank you again, and we will share your information on the CCDEH website. And as a reminder for everyone else, make sure you do your evaluation. And lastly, we'll see you for our last workshop on November 5th on information technology, high tech or bust. Michael Ballier will be doing a great presentation for us. So with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great, safe day. Take care.